Hi, my beautiful friends, and a lot of you have been asking me about a really trending topic and a very controversial topic, and that is benzene in sunscreens. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just give you my 2 cents as an insider on benzene in sunscreens. Now, a lot of times I tell you guys that don't be a chemophobe. If you are going to be a chemophobe, you should not apply any cosmetics. Nothing. No hyaluronic acid, no retinol, no vitamin C. Everything in life is, like I always say, everything in life is a chemical. Oxygen, water, retinol, hyaluronic acid, copper peptides, antioxidants, everything that you apply on your body and whatever you eat, they're all chemicals. Now, what you have to be careful about, and that is what I try to teach you all, is that there's a big difference between a good and a bad chemical. So yes, they're all chemicals, but they're good chemicals and they're bad chemicals. Now, one of those bad chemicals is benzene. Benzene is a known carcinogen. It causes cancer. It is prohibited, banned. Everywhere in the world, you cannot put benzene in anything. So benzene is a cancer-causing chemical, and that is a fact. So I'm going to distinguish between the fact and then the lie for you. So benzene is a cancer-causing chemical. Now, this is where you have to be smart. So I said that you should not be a chemophobe, meaning that you should not be scared of chemicals. Just know the good ones from the bad ones, and you are completely safe. So just know that, but please don't be a chemophobe. So a lot of you are going to tell me that, how about alcohol and perfumes and all these things? Well, in my formulations, I lots of times add alcohol, and a lot of times add a nice mild synthetic perfume, just to give the body formulations and these things a nice scent, because a lot of the raw ingredients, they don't smell nice. So I just add a very safe synthetic scent that doesn't do anything unless you are allergic to that chemical. If you are allergic to a certain perfume or a certain essential oil or a certain ingredient, of course you should not use it. But then a lot of the chemicals used in cosmetics are completely safe. Now, I'm going to tell you, as an insider, as a formulator for a lot of the brands, I'm going to tell you something. In the European Union, EU Cosmetics Commission, we prohibit almost 4,000 substances. They are prohibited, they are banned. We cannot add them in cosmetics. So in the EU, we cannot add about 4,000, and the number is increasing in cosmetics. If that is added in a cosmetic, the lab is not going to be allowed to process it. We are not going to be allowed to give it, to sell it, to do anything with it. Hence, a lot of the cosmetics that you are using from the European, produced in the European countries, they're not going to contain those banned chemicals. Now, USA does not ban a lot of chemicals, so that is a little bit dangerous. They do use some substances that should not be used, and they're not very safe. They are trying to ban certain things, but still they are quite lenient. Canada follows EU, so they ban quite a lot of substances. Then you have Japan, Australia, New Zealand. These countries are also very strict because the health ministry is overseeing a lot of the manufacturing processes that are going to go into the manufacturing of cosmetics. So now let's return to the topic of benzene in sunscreens. And I'm going to show you something. All right, guys, so here I have with me sunscreen number 1 and sunscreen number 2. So I have 2 sunscreens. Now, sunscreen number 2 and sunscreen number 1, they're both the same brand. So let's say, for instance, they're Dr.A's brand. So I have created sunscreen 1, and I've also created sunscreen number 2. Now, what happened? Because there was a high demand for my sunscreen, very high demand, I took sunscreen number 1 and I created it in the same lab that I created it, and then I manufactured it there. The demand kept on growing. Maybe my lab was not able to keep up, or we had to outsource, because a lot of the times there are lots of issues. The pharmaceutical industry and the taxation, the laws of the country. A lot of the times, brands have to outsource, or they have to take their production and manufacturing processes in other countries. So even though number one and number two are exact same formulation, same raw ingredients, same everything, the only difference is where they are being manufactured. Please understand this extremely important point, because I don't want you to stop using a sunscreen. Oh my God, the sunscreen contained benzene. We're not going to use a sunscreen. Please, 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 please. This is so dangerous. Please don't do this. A lot of these bloggers, they don't have any, I've told you this like a million times, they do not have any knowledge of the science. They pick up something from the internet and then they start blasting it, and that blast goes and that post goes viral. So everybody is now talking about benzenes in sunscreens and it's going to cause cancer. I'm going to tell you an insider secret that nobody will tell you. Yes, I just mentioned in the beginning that benzene is a cancer-causing agent. Nothing in life in the world should contain benzene. Unfortunately, soft drinks, a lot of the foods that you eat, the pollution, if you live in a really polluted city, is going to have benzene. So all the pollution in the air, a lot of what you're eating and using will contain trace amounts or sometimes even really high amounts of benzene. So you cannot escape these toxins. They're present in the air, they're present in life. But when they are present in cosmetics, they are known as contaminants. Contamination is not an active ingredient, and it's not the inactive ingredient. Contaminant is like dirt. So for instance, my number one sunscreen did not have benzene, but my number two sunscreen might have benzene, because I sent the manufacturing, I outsourced it. I sent it to another country. Maybe the water was contaminated. There was something going on in the supply chain or in the manufacturing process that resulted in contamination with benzene. So ValueSure, and those are the people that have conducted these studies on various sunscreens. So they took a bunch of sunscreens at random and they conducted these studies. And a lot of these independent labs, they do that. So independent labs are those third-party labs that are all over the world, and they pick up random food items and cosmetics and different things, and they test them. They test them for carcinogenic substances, mercury, benzenes, all these formaldehydes, all these things that are being tested at random by these testing labs all over the world. So what ValueSure did is they picked up a bunch of sunscreens and they tested them for benzene, and they found out that they contained quite a bit, because benzene, like I said, should be zero, but unfortunately we cannot escape it. A lot of the time there are benzene contamination going on in certain things. So benzene should not ever exceed 2 parts per million. But in these sunscreens, the benzene level was found to be very high, and that is quite dangerous. You're going to ask me that, Dr. A, if the benzenes were found, for instance, in Neutrogena. So Neutrogena, if you go to ValueSure, go to the list and see all the sunscreens, the list is there. You will see that Neutrogena sunscreen contains benzene. So now you guys are going to be so scared. All of you are going to think that, oh my God, I have been using Neutrogena sunscreen, and God knows how much benzene has been going into my body. I'm going to tell you something. It's a secret. Please remember this. The products that they tested they just picked up those products at random and they tested them. It does not represent the Neutrogena brand, because the entire Neutrogena brand, because for instance, there's Neutrogena that's being manufactured in Paris, in France, There's some factories in USA, some in Canada, and some in other parts of the world. The Neutrogena that they picked up, like I told you right in the beginning, was actually manufactured in another country. Perhaps in a lab that may be GMP certified, but the water or something was contaminated. There was something wrong in the chain that the benzene got into the sunscreen. It does not mean that the whole Neutrogena brand or the entire sunscreens in the world, La Roche-Posay, CeraVe, they contain benzene. Like I said, benzene is a poison. It's a contaminant. It is not an active ingredient. It's not like the mineral and chemical filters. It's not the inactive ingredients. It's not a preservative. It's not a perfume. It's not an emulsifier. It's nothing. It's got nothing to do with any formulation. It is a contaminant. If you are using, that's why I always tell you that please stick to known brands, good brands. Yes, Neutrogena is a very good brand, but for some reason, there was a certain batch that was contaminated. So now what you can do is go to valleyshore.com and look up the different sunscreens and just see what they have attached with that. The information is going to tell you the batch number, the lot number. So usually the lot number is here and the batch number is here. Have a look at that. If that matches, then you should throw that sunscreen away. That's not a good sunscreen because that obviously was manufactured in a place where there was benzene contamination. So that is the important point that you guys should remember. So the products that they tested were a certain batch and that batch was contaminated, but it does not mean that all sunscreens are going to contain cancer-causing or carcinogenic substances. That does not mean that. So this was my tip and this was my talk on this very important topic. Please don't be a chemophobe. Don't stop using sunscreens. Benzene is carcinogenic, but it is not present in any good quality brand. Will not ever, any cosmetic will be devoid of benzene because it is prohibited by the major countries in the world where these high quality cosmetics are made. It's a prohibited ingredient. We can never, ever add benzene into any cosmetic. Majority of the big high quality brands make sure that when the product goes out, it is devoid of any contamination. So they test it. It's called the final testing. They're going to test it and check for any contamination, any microbes, anything. So that's a long process. So most of the products you are using, in fact, a lot of the products you are using are going to be free of benzene, especially the sunscreens. They're going to be safe. So guys, I hope this helped you. This sheds some light and it's not going to confuse you. So number one, please don't stop using your sunscreens. Sunscreens do not contain benzene. Benzene is not part of any formulation, and benzene, like mercury, is a contaminant. So unfortunately, the batch that they tested contained benzene. Most probably they were manufactured in some lab that had this problem. So therefore, this was like a very misleading study and a misleading test. A misleading test because a lot of people are now confused. So I want to shed this light for you guys. So please remember, don't be a chemophobe because that's not going to help you. Love you guys, and I hope this sheds some light. If you have any other such things that you want me to clear up for you, let me know and I will do my best. Whenever I get time, I'll try to post a story for you guys so that you can be aware, enlightened, and the knowledge is power, and the truth will always set you free. So look for truth, look for knowledge, and please do not take care of yourselves, of your skin, of your life, of your mind, of your soul. Good night.